We've been talking Seahawks and different projections and different grades of their draft, things like that. And I saw an interesting article last week, Dave. Well, you were gone, but it was NFL's top 10 most complete teams for the 2023 season. This is written by Eric Edholm of NFL.com, and he is now with us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. Hello, Eric. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. I made you guys wait a little. Had a family vacation last week, so I appreciate your patience. Thanks for having me.
Well, your priorities are all out of whack, but that's okay. We appreciate it.
I was on vacation too, so you timed it just right.
Yeah.
Right.
Couldn't have this conversation without Dave here. But
That's right.
For people, Eric, for people that didn't get a chance to read your article, before we get into everything you had to say and your rankings and all that, what went into determining how complete a team is?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of boiled it down to about 15 teams initially. There's some obvious candidates, some rebuilding teams like the Texans and Cardinals and whoever who are obviously not in contention. So you could axe a couple off from the bottom right away. But I tried to find teams that had as few questions as possible, as much depth as possible, realistically, right? You're not going to have choice backups at every single position. So, you kind of look around the league, and I was surprised when I went around, and even though it was a lot of playoff teams from last year, there were some teams like Cleveland who almost made the cut that when I looked at a big picture, you said, boy, they have more talent than you think. And I think that applies to Seattle too, even coming off a playoff team where, I think heading into last year, there was some real question about, hey, how much are they going to, be in the hunt right away and all this and that. So a lot can change in a year's time. Obviously, it can swing back the other way. But, the Seahawks are right there in the mix just because of the fact that they've plugged a lot of holes and done a good job of replacing some outgoing vets.
Well, and Eric, part of it is Geno Smith. And is there a part of you, and do you get a sense from maybe the rest of the league that, like, why did it take so long? I mean, it was a huge surprise with him. Usually players in their second, third year, get it going. But with Geno, it just, I think that's, and I'm not sure, I'll let you, answer this question. But I mean, is that where a lot of the question marks and sort of the discounting comes on Geno Smith? Because if you look at his numbers from last year, he was a Pro Bowler.
It was terrific. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. It got to the point where, it felt like he had to shoulder the entire load at the end of the season. So what an incredible journey from, there was probably a time in August where Drew Lock was expected to win that job or maybe slightly favored, however you want to frame it. But, yeah, it really has been great. And the fact that it took him till age 32 to do it, was a number of factors. First, I think he came into the league, into this cauldron in New York City, coming from an offense that was pretty unsophisticated compared to what they were asking to do checks-wise and all the, things you have to manage as a quarterback in the NFL. So that was a massive leap. And when he didn't perform up to a certain level right away, he got sort of branded as a backup type. And that was just kind of the way I think it was for a few years. And to his credit, he kept working, kept waiting for that opportunity. You never know when it's going to come. I didn't think it would come in Seattle. Russell never used to get hurt and everything, and he was in the prime of his career. But the way it unfolded and the way he seized that job and ran with it was really impressive. And, yeah, it made it very easy to put Seattle in that top 10 for me.
So, Eric, looking at this team right now as they're constructed in their defense, what was your feeling looking at a defense with some new draft picks, some new free agents they brought in, compared to what they were last year, which was not very good? They were pretty decent against the pass, but the run, they were horrific. So what sold you on the defense?
Yeah, obviously, they did kind of have to sort of throw the kitchen sink at it a little bit. And, I know Draymond's going to come in with some expectations. And, Jaron Reed's obviously a well-regarded player. But the depth is really, I think, what hurt him as much last year when they had a couple injuries up front. You could see, obviously, Wagner, too, if you want to include, the second level as well. And so, another year in the system, more depth, certainly. I think, obviously, getting Bobby back is can't do anything but help, I would imagine, coming off a really great season. I know it got lost in a terrible Rams campaign, but, boy, he looked great, made a lot of impact plays. He was the same impact guy he's been for a decade. So, and like you said, the secondary as well, just kind of becoming the second version of the Legion of Boom. This is a lot of young talent that boy, as a draft guy, that's kind of what I do, most of the year. I really like the group they're putting together, and in time it could be pretty special.
So how much, Eric, is based on last year? Because they got, I think I counted 6. Well, we can go through them. But as far as, starters, significant contributors from their draft. I mean, they had even Boye Mafe, really. And I'm expecting a huge jump. Does that give them, in your mind, a little bit more credit as far as their picks this year? Because most people really liked what they picked, even though at number 20 they didn't really need a wide receiver necessarily. They didn't really need a corner at number 5, but it seems like that they're getting a lot of credit based on last year's draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two-pronged, right? I mean, there was obviously that spell where I think at least among draft guys, maybe our humor is a little different than everybody else's. But, the Seahawks were always that team that were going to throw you a curveball in round 1. And they take some reaches in round 2 as well. And they'd uncover some gems and it all kind of balance out. But there were some curious picks from a national standpoint, I think, for years. Then last year's draft happened. Home run crew, great group, really kind of helped transform the team in a transition period. It probably subconsciously did. It probably, gave a lot of people a little more comfort that, okay, that you don't have to expect the unorthodox pick or the truly bizarre one. Yeah, Devin Witherspoon, as you said, wasn't a crucial need, but I'd argue corners are hard to find, and this guy was only going to go one pick later. So, and I think Smith and Jigba fits that receiver core perfectly. And I don't know, I really am excited about what they've done the last couple of years.
I like that you said the truly bizarre picks.
There were a few.
Yeah, certainly. There have been some where we scratched our head like, wait, who? Who did they take?
What?
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, remember Nick Saban even was
James Carpenter.
He was like James Carpenter. Yeah, when he was drafted. So
they L.J. Collier. There have been a few. But I'm curious. Just back to Geno for a moment. Just an outsider's perspective. It feels like, from a lot of people inside in Seattle and nationally, that there's kind of he was phenomenal last year. Nobody's debating what he did, but there's kind of that, but was it real? Question mark. Like,
right.
is it repeatable? What are your feelings about Geno going into do you think we see something close, maybe not quite as good, something better? What's your expectation?
Yeah, obviously it's a great question, and I think a fair question when you watch the Seahawks pre-draft activities, right? They were sending the road circus out, on a tour, going to watch every quarterback who, had a heartbeat this year and taking pictures and making a social event out of it. And obviously having that number 5 pick probably played into that factor. Let's just make sure there's no one there that we're gaga over, or, what would have happened had Anthony Richardson been there. There's a fair conversation to be had about all that, but I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that, that the trust is suddenly lost or that Geno's going to get a big head or anything like that. It doesn't seem real to me. And I think Smith and Jigba's a terrific safety blanket. My favorite receiver in the draft this year by a good measure. I had him my number 11 or 12 overall player. I forget exactly where, but I think he's better than people are giving him credit for. And he'll be a Cooper Kupp-like contributor at some point in his career. I don't know, but maybe not quite that volume, but that type of player. So you add that to the offense, you theoretically get another year better on the offensive line, those tackles and everything. So, it's all there for him to be strong, especially with another guy in the backfield too, and catch passes and Charbonnet. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's going to be a massive statistical leap, but I would imagine it's similar caliber play to last year.